just me again. I need someone to be my friend. Someone who won't run away. Maybe send me an angel. The nicest angel you have.
Now, we all know about Tiber Septim and his great empire, but he wasn't the first to make one in Siridor. In fact, the very first was founded by Saint Alessia, back in the Merethic era, where Bethesda decided that literally anything goes when it comes to his lore. Seriously, this period of time is absolutely bizarre, involving a time-travelling cyborg paladin who mistakes cats for elves, a queen who might be a furry, and somehow the Minotaur is the most normal out of the heroic trio. And yes, the Alessian Empire was founded on the 2 guys, 1 girl trio trope. Except the girls are the hero for once. Kind of. Let's start with a bit of context. Cyrodiil was not home of the Imperials during the Merethic era. It was instead home to the Aelids, a type of ancient elf, and the Needs. Humans were enslaved by the elves. One of these Needs was Al-Esh, who went by many names, like Al-Shat, Esha, and most notably, Alessia. Now, we don't know a lot about Alessia before this, with her early life being erased from history, although we do know that she lived in Sardavar-Lid, in the Niben. After Ysgramor decimated the Snow Elf population in Skyrim and his descendant, Harald, managed to make Skyrim the first kingdom of man in Tamriel, Alessia got an idea to take advantage of the fractured state of the Aelid nobility. While the Aelids worshipped Aldmeri gods and the occasional Daedra to deal with their slaves, Alessia noted that the Atmorans of Skyrim worshipped gods more sympathetic to humans, and so gave them a prayer in hope for some help. At Sancretor, Kyne, the widow of Shor, who you might know as Kinnereth, answered. Kyne's answer involved sending her son to help from Atmora, the demigod hero of Morahouse, and while he was sent to save the Nedic people, he also got busy with Alessia because, apparently she looked at this dude and thought to herself,
"You better get the best one."
Now Morahouse rallied the Nedic people behind Alessia, and she became the slave queen. But this isn't all that Kyne did. She also sent Alessia visions, one of which told her of Pelinal Whitestrake, quite possibly the most insane man Tamriel has ever seen, and yes, I'm including Sheogorath in that. While he has the title of the Divine Crusader and is somewhat divine in origin, we don't actually know anything about who Pelinal is. He was most likely sent by somebody, probably Akatosh. He travelled through time, I think, and there's a theory that he's a cyborg, and also he doesn't really die like a normal person. But all you really need to know is that this dude hates elves, and slowly loses his sanity as Alessia's campaign went on. Seriously, this guy hates elves like anybody. He hates elves so much that he makes Lex Luthor look like he actually likes Superman. And this hate made Pelinal very, very enthusiastic about the campaign. You see, despite Morahouse being the demigod hero, Pelinal was actually the one who does most of the work. He was to be the leader of Alessia's armies, although I'm not actually sure he needed an army most of the time. Pelinal basically goes on his own to decimate the Aelid forces because he couldn't really be hurt by conventional means. This near invincibility, as well as some really odd things we'll talk about later, is quite possibly where the whole cyborg thing came from. When he first meets Alessia and co, Pelinal first turns up with a sword and mace covered in elf innards, and basically says to the Slave Queen, if the ear is pointy, they gotta go. Pelinal began by challenging the individual Aelid kings in battle, slaying them one by one, driving the Aelids out of Niben. But as the rebellion went on, he began having moments of uncontrolled madness, which is where most of the craziness of the rebellion actually stems from. Pelinal would slaughter people regardless of whatever they were, Aelid or not, and needed Alessia to intercede with the Divine's help to calm him down. Now, Pelinal's madness made him do some really wacky things, and most of the time it was just downright horrible. He experienced the madness first when a hoplite he cared for and trained, Hunna, was slain in battle, and in this madness, Pelinal literally killed everything from the cities of Narlime to Cyrodiil. Everything. Ooh, I know we talk about Ysgramor having a big elf kill count, but Pelinal had killed millions. He hated elves so much that when he was in a duel with an Aelid king, He bit his neck veins like a vampire, for some reason, and started giving away spoilers by screaming Remen's name, the guy who had found the second Cyrodiilic Empire, despite the first still being in the works. He grew so mad that there are reports of him mistaking Khajiit for elves and just murdering them for being nearby. I don't... How can you look at a cat and think it's an elf? You know, I'm beginning to think he just really hated pointy ears. Now, while Alessia's trump card was a raving lunatic who killed literally millions with nothing but steel and elbow grease, Pelinal wasn't her only way of driving back the Aelids. Morahouse was a demigod and packed a punch, the Needic people were an army at her whim, the people of Skyrim joined her cause after their war with the elves, and even some rogue Aelid lords came to her side. Remember that the Aelids were already fractured, and I guess all were not too happy about the Daedra worship among their people, so what remained of the Aelid forces ended up retreating to central Cyrodiil at the White Gold Tower, which would eventually become the centre of the Imperial City. While the rebellion was going swimmingly, the Aelids had one more wrench to throw in Alessia's plans, and their forces were now under the control of Umaril, the Unfeathered, who made a deal with Meridia to have the mighty Aurorans as his foot soldiers. With Umaril being a demigod and having a mighty army as well as a well-fortified location, it made things somewhat tricky for Alessia to land the final blow. Her allies warned caution, delaying the siege of the White Gold Tower, which pissed off Pelinal. He started cussing everybody out, and at this point Pelinal's sanity was hanging by a thread, so he pulled a Thanos and decided to invade the White Gold Tower, himself. Like, fully alone. Before we continue, I do want to touch on Pelinal's insanity and how he was actually conscious of it. His maddened ravings are where we get the idea that he has some sort of relation with Akatosh, and in one of his bouts of madness, he was quoted as saying, "O Akka," meaning Akatosh, "for our shared madness I do this. I watch you watching me watching back. Umaril dares call us out, for that is how we made him." The Akatosh connection gets stronger when someone was quoted as saying that Pelinal had no heart under his armour, only the rage of a mindless dragon. The problem is, Pelinal didn't really like it when people compared him to the gods, and would kill anyone who did so, except Alessia, because he had a soft spot for her, I guess. Still, Pelinal seems somewhat remorseful about his madness, and when asked about it after a battle, he described it as when the dream no longer needs its dreamer. Sounds profound, but I don't really get what this means. Either way, he decided to roll up to the White Gold Tower alone, and called out Umaril. Umaril was a no-show at first, sacrificing the Aurorans to wear Pelinal down, and the armaments from Meridia meant that Pelinal bled for the first time. Now weakened and hurt, Umaril finally revealed himself to take on the Paladin. Their duel is legendary, and you see it throughout both ESO and Oblivion. Trey blows are commented as being evenly matched, and things seem to be going to Umaril's plans, except he didn't account for the fact that Pelinal was really good at killing elves. He rips off Umaril's wings and kills him, basically ending the enslavement of humanity. Another problem is Pelinal's a bit mental at this point, and he decides to rage bait the remaining Aelid kings, despite being grievously harmed, by cussing out their heritage. So they dogpile on him, cut him into 8 pieces, but he sort of just didn't die. I know, weird, right? I mean, his head got removed, but he sort of just chilled there, bodiless, in the White Gold Tower. When Alessia and co finally took the tower, which would have been easy after Pelinal did all the work, Morahouse finds the Crusaders' head, and they have a chat before Pelinal finally kicks the bucket. We don't know what this chat is about, and both Morahouse and Pelinal speak of things that they regret, that will never reach the ears of Alessia. But after the death of Pelinal and the ascension of the Slave Queen, the Alessian Empire was founded. During her rule, Alessia turned many of the Aelid rebels on her side into vassals, with her combining the Nordic pantheon from Skyrim and the Aldmeri pantheon to create the 8 divines. She also had a child with Morahouse, called Belhazar, who was one of the first Minotaurs. Belhazar eventually succeeded Alessia after her death, but her death had a few strange tidbits we need to talk about. For one, Pelinal comes back as a spirit, stating that his death had saved him from his madness, and that he was there to take Alessia to the afterlife, presumably to Aetherius. Akatosh also visited her, where he bound her soul to the Amulet of Kings, since she's Dragonborn, and made her the first human saint in Tamriel's history. Her followers thereafter would be known as the Alessian Order, which could be a topic on their own. While the Alessian Order eventually fell with the Empire, for a whole host of reasons, Alessia would be venerated to this day as a saint. While she didn't get worshipped as a god, like Remen or Tiber Septim, her founding the first Cyrodiilic Empire and still getting credit all this time later is pretty astounding. Now, there is more to cover with the Alessian Empire, particularly its decline, but this is the crazy part, and where I'm going to end this video. I might revisit the rest of the lore later down the line. I mean, we'd still have to talk about things like the Thracian Plague, the Dragon Break, the War of Righteousness, and so on and so forth. Let me know if you'd want to see that. In the meantime, I want to still thank you all for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again in another video.
And so the pack was born again, as the wolves of Yarbasker, to rule in life and serve in death, as the moonlight's dark hunter.